Hello and welcome, everybody. I apologize if this sounds a bit weird. I'm in one of those kind of lock away booths to record stuff. Don't
Glass
ask.
case of emotion.
But regardless, it is Thursday, the 13th of November, all day. You join myself and the amazing goddess of grain for the Grain Blast, where, as usual, Angie will be providing us with a rapid roundup of the latest pricing flows and market moving news in grain markets. But before she kicks on, I'll get the boring legals out the way. Nothing discussed on this podcast is trading or investment advice. Nothing's an endorsement. This is recorded live. There is no editing, so we apologize if we start ranting or we go on tangents or if the wheels fall off. But, take us as we are. You love us regardless, and we love you. Angie, how are you?
The wheels never fall off. We never go on. I don't know what you're talking about. Gosh, this is always straightforward and professional. So happy Thursday. I will call this USDA Report Eve. We got our first hit. We got our first hit today. We just snort that right up with export sales. First week back. I missed it. I didn't realize how much. It was really kind of anticlimactic though. So kind of a bummer in that regard. Not bad at all. Just about 1.4, I think, million metric ton of corn. I haven't seen the breakdown of who bought what where. I don't know if they put one out yet because they're pretending that, we just got back and this is hard to do. And so we have, we saw like 1.4 million metric ton of corn sold, 300 300,000 metric ton of wheat sold, and like 800,000 metric ton of soybeans or whatever. So basically in line with expectations, in line with what we had been seeing. And, nothing, like I said, kind of anticlimactic in the sense of no big surprises in that regard. I do think I'm trying to figure out what exactly the schedule looks like as we get back in our cooking. I think we will get another report out next week. And I want to say that is the collection of everything that has not been released so far, though we will see, a reflection of this demand in next week's report, or at the very least in tomorrow's report, the USDA numbers. The World Ag Outlook Board, the chief economists, all of these people, they have seen the raw data, like they have a general idea of what's been taking place. And so we will see tomorrow quicker than next week, just whether or not things have been, resoundingly good or whatever. And there's a lot of chatter right now. If you're watching the markets, you're seeing some continued strength. Corn is finally pushed above the 200-day moving average. We're trading up to the highest level we've seen, I believe, since June. Right now on the December board, 440 was my target. That was one of those sort of when I was leading farmers through the swamp of sadness. You might not. Do you remember how depressing I was in August? Maybe you don't, but it wasn't fun.
Just ordered. Just ordered.
Yeah, that's why it wasn't a great time, but there were a lot of times where I was like, we will trade back up to 440. That's just kind of where I feel we work our way back towards. It took a lot longer than I thought, like I thought we would see it prior to October for some reasons, but here we are. And so, like I said, you're seeing the board work its way back up towards the highest level we've seen basically since July 3rd. Prior to that, it had been June 23rd. And so, we're going to be watching closely to see if there's some bushels of corn that move into the pipeline, simply because, what we're hearing about now is that the interior is, somewhat short of corn. And I've been talking about this. We've been talking about this, just what we've been seeing with basis levels and things. And so a lot of folks have been focusing entirely on, PNW basis, Gulf basis, and that's been kind of the foundation of their argument. Like, oh, we don't have any demand because, PNW is out of the market until January, and the Gulf basis fell out of bed, here over the last couple of weeks. But, I've been kind of adamant, like, hey, just be aware, like logistically, like there's only so much we can move and some of these other things. It's not necessarily that demand is bad. It's just that your front end supply has been covered. And that's what the interior market is saying, basically, is that SIF, the PNW, those markets kind of jumped first. They were the first to offer really strong values, and they got a bunch of position covered because they hadn't been in the market, aggressively for so long. And that if you're an elevator manager, and Cullen Wilson's one, his Sane Grain, I think is his handle on Twitter, he talked about how many shuttles of corn and how many shuttles of beans he was selling for movement to keep his elevator with space, throughout the rally. And so to see the interior market really firm up tells me that demand is not poor, that just basically the exporter front ran the market structure or firmed their basis first. Everyone sold into it, because you were able to sell the best structure, best basis, best margin you'd been able to sell throughout the entire year. I mean, we're talking best opportunities for the commercial elevator manager all year long, for the farmer as well, and so you've seen some movement. Now we have to see what happens next. And so that's where we're sitting. I mean, you've got beans right now up another dime today. And the other thing that is got my attention is that we're just seeing these rallies happen kind of around China opening time, and it's a little reminiscent to me of 2020, just in the sense like we had these arguments in the fall of 2020 that, China's never going to buy what we say they're going to buy, all, sort of this sort of thing. Like we were hearing of business being done. We were open though, the government was, so it might be a little bit different there,
Hey,
but
look, we're hopefully, touch wood, we are reopening.
we are reopening. So yeah, we will start getting flash sales and things like that. But, that's the thing that I'm looking at is everyone keeps saying, well, there's no sign that China is buying. And to me, I'm like, well, to me, it feels like the board starting to firm as soon as they open, says that they're probably pricing futures. And that could be just
Right.
Brazil. It could be, Brazilian contracts. It could be Brazil, partial US, whatever. But, they're under, there's an underpin underneath this market. And so, yeah, we're continuing to watch cash, but cash isn't necessarily telling folks what they want to see, or, it's easy to get a little bit sort of worked up about it, especially, when we're used to seeing front end inversion. Like if you're inverted, that's a sign of a bullish market, right? If you're showing big carry, it's a sign of a bearish market. But in this instance here, I think we just have to be, aware of the fact that we have 6 weeks before
Right.
the end of the year. And, you know, we're millennial managers now. Like we are thinking about not having, we're thinking about time off already.
Well, no, and this is it, right? And this has been the case for, I say traditional markets, but as in, obviously, nothing's more traditional than grain. Because, most of the original exchanges started off as grain markets and grain exchanges. But in terms of financials, in terms of like the risk on, risk off sentiment more kind of broadly, everyone, we always say kind of Thanksgiving is when people want to be winding down, especially if it's been a good year in equities, when these long only funds, they want to be locking in these gains, these great gains this year that they've had. Yeah, so people are walking away after Thanksgiving. And one of the questions I was going to ask you when we were getting nearer to Thanksgiving was, is that kind of traditionally what you see in grain markets, but potentially not traditionally, but now more so? Or what happens with that?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and that's what it is. Like the sooner you get, the closer you get to a holiday, like especially a big one like and this year, if you look at the calendar, and this is such a, I'm such a planner, like I am already pumped because I think it's on Christmas falls on a
Whoa, whoa,
Wednesday.
whoa, whoa. Hang on. You're already pumped because you've already got your Christmas lights on. We know
I
this
have
from the prior.
some lights up. The tree's going up
Sorry,
this weekend.
sorry.
I'm
No,
not
no,
even gonna
sorry. Sorry.
apologize. Like,
Sorry.
yeah, I'll
Winter
say
lights. Winter lights is what you called them.
winter lights, exactly.
There you go.
But like you're looking at I just brought my elementary education background out. So Christmas Eve falls on a Wednesday this year. And so that's the other thing to be thinking about is like people are going to show up for the 22nd, the 23rd, and you ain't seeing them again until Thursday the 1st. Like this
Yeah.
is the
Yeah,
perfect
exactly. Exactly.
long weekend. You know what I mean? And so you've got to be thinking about that as a logistical manager as well. Like I know that would be something that we would be talking about is like, how are we going to staff this? How are we going to be able to load it? And so the simple solution in a lot of these instances is you just don't, unless you pay me a lot. And so I think I think that's a part of it. Like we did see a lot of grain move. There is grain in places that is not necessarily greatly accessible, like South Dakota. basis up there kind of really stinks on ice, and I don't see it improving too awful much throughout the year simply because there's a lot of corn up there that'll need to go. But at the same time, like I said, I mean, I'm trading actively 20 cents or better above posted bids in just about every market I'm trading. And if I'm trying to cover the markets that I originate for, if I wanted to cover size today, I'd have to pay even more than this spread of payment. You know what I mean? Like you're
Right. Yeah.
talking
Yeah.
bid ask as wide as a truck. So and it's like that just about everywhere. Now, on the flip side, I feel like I always talk bullish things. So we have to, recognize that we did get a big wheat crop estimate out of Argentina today again, which a lot of folks are like 24.5 million metric ton. Why has no one said anything? Everyone has. I mean, the Argentina massive crop has been on the docket for a hot minute. I will want to see because they've been dealing with a lot of moisture. They're starting to get to where corn planting and bean planting is getting a bit delayed in Argentina. And so if you have a delay, if you have wheat ready to harvest and it's getting rained on, I have been there, done that. They don't give you t-shirts. It's just not fun. And so we'll see how the quality is. That could become, become competition with corn. And so there's a few things there. We're obviously going to continue to watch what goes on with Europe. There's a lot of talk that their corn crop has a lot of quality issues, aflatoxin and vomitoxin. We saw this last year, and that, kind of led to a spike in imports for blending. And so we'll want to watch that closely as well. But yeah, beyond that, I mean, we're just gearing up going into tomorrow. I'm a little nervous if, farmer listening or whatever, do a little bit more trimming of your length. I think at these levels, like we're up about a dime higher than the higher end of the range I thought we would trade. We're obviously going to look at 1150. I'm not going to fight City Hall and I'm not going to fight momentum or sentiment. You know what I mean? But like the rug pull could be kind of epic if we aren't careful. If we come in tomorrow and we're 53 bushel to the acre from the USDA, which I struggle to see how that happens just simply because
Right.
of how
Yeah.
cash
Yeah.
is traded. But it could, and if it does, then you gotta chill a little. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
we're gonna have we're still gonna have a 300 million metric ton carry out or whatever, especially if we see yields stay elevated and they decide to delay the EUDR. Those are two things that are kind of driving this market, and so that's what you just pay attention to that if you are a farmer listening. But beyond that, like tomorrow is going to be a big day. We're gonna have an export, or excuse me. Well, we will if we get export flash sales, we'll get them back starting tomorrow, and then we'll have our big WASDE, which Lance did tell me that we have objective yield data and farmer survey data. So all of the info coming out is going to be the same as it would be in a normal report. It's not going to be
There you go.
a half-ass report. Well, I can't
Fingers
guarantee
crossed.
that.
Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, yeah. So we'll see. See what happens.
Well,
That's it.
awesome. Well, there we go. A little bit of an inside scoop at the end, which is amazing. Angie, you are amazing. Thank you so much as always. Listeners, thank you so much for tuning in. We hope we've added some value to your day. Whatever you're doing, stay safe, keep it tight, and we'll see you all tomorrow on, what is it, One More Sleep Till WASDE.
Yeah, one more sleep. I won't have any new news for you in the morning, but I'll be able to say the same stuff all over again, just in a different way.
Well,
So,
I look forward to it.
all right. Have a good one, guys.
See you later.